All goes onward and outward, and nothing collapses, and to die is different from what anyone supposed, and luckier. As one supposed it is lucky to be born, I hasten to inform him or her, it is just as lucky to die, and I know it. All of these things that we think of as us and them, I mean right down to like us being people who aren't dead, and them being people who are dead. He's breaking down. And so here's the question. And this is the question at the heart of Paper Towns. And it's a question that sort of came to me in reading and rereading Leaves of Grass. This is my copy of Leaves of Grass that I read when I was reading Paper Towns. This is just the 1855 edition. This is like a big book that has all the different, this is boring. Okay, so, but like you can see like some of this is my editor's handwriting and some of it's mine, but we went through with Post-it notes talking about this girl that I was thinking about, this girl who became Margaret Roth Spiegelman, and just reading the poem over and over and over again. And what I started thinking about was whether or not it's possible to be someone else, and how we know what it's like to be someone else. Because many of you have heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it again. We are stuck inside of these skin-encased enclosures that we can never get out of, and we can never know what it's like to be inside of a different skin, and we can never know what it's like to see with different eyes. Like, I will never know what it's like not to have crap vision. I will never know what it's like to be 4'11". I will never know what it's like to be like Shaquille O'Neal and be really good at basketball. I'll never know what it's like to grow up on the South Side. I'll never know what it's like to grow up in Rio de Janeiro. And this is a big problem because my inability to imagine other people as complexly as I imagine myself results in all kinds of misery for me and also all kinds of misery for other people. Because every time someone does something that I don't want them to do, I am baffled because I want them to do the other thing. And so why won't they? Why won't they give over themselves to the desires of the most important human being in the history of human beings, me? And every nanosecond of our experience tells us that we are at the absolute epicenter of human history, right? Like, everything that happens to me happens to me before it happens to any of you, right? Like, what's going on right now is happening to me. It may be happening to you, and you may be having whatever thoughts you're having about some boy you like, or the fact that you didn't know going into this that this was going to be a lecture about Walt Whitman, but at least you got a signed party blower. Whatever it is, whatever it is that you're thinking about, that's happening to you, and I have a very limited amount of access to it. So my question is, how do you learn what it's like to be someone else? How do you go from being constantly baffled by people's failures to live up to your expectations, by their failure to do the thing that you want them to do? By the way, sorry, I'm not going to talk about my books at all. But this is more important. This is why I write them. How do you get to that point? Whitman gives us an idea about this. Let's see if we think that he is right or wrong. But while I'm reading this, I want you guys to think about whether or not you think that it's possible for me, an old guy, to imagine what it's like to be you, and vice versa. I think I will do nothing for a long time but listen, and accrue what I hear into myself, and let sounds contribute toward me. I hear the bravuras of birds, the bustle of growing wheat, the gossip of flames, clack of sticks, cooking my meals. I hear the sound of the human voice, a sound I love. I hear all sounds as they are tuned to their uses. Sounds of the city and sounds out of the city, sounds of the day and of the night. I hear the violoncello or man's heart's complaint, and I hear keyed cornet or else the echo of sunset. I hear the chorus. It is a grand opera. This, indeed, is music. I skipped around a little there in case you're trying to read along. So he listens. He says, I think I'll do nothing for a long time but listen. The first 20 pages of the poem, he's just like sitting in a field, basically, and listening. And then he goes on, he listens. Oh boy, does he listen to a lot. He listens for several pages. And then he talks, if you don't know what, then he goes on and he says, my ties and ballasts leave me. I travel, I sail. My elbows rest in the sea gaps. I skirt the Sierras. My palms cover continents. I am afoot with my vision. So this listening sort of leads him to this place where his ballast leaves him and he like floats up and his palms cover continents and he's afoot with his vision. And all of a sudden, instead of listening to people, instead of hearing the bravura of birds, instead of hearing the human voice, this happens. I am the hounded slave. I wince at the bite of the dogs. Hell and despair are upon me. Crack and again crack the marksman. I clutch the rails of the fence. My gore dribs thinned with the ooze of my skin. I fall on the weeds and stones. The riders spur their unwilling horses and haul close. They taunt my dizzy ears. They beat me violently over the head with their whipstocks. Agonies are one of my changes of garments. I do not ask the wounded person how he feels. I myself become the wounded person. So this is what I wrote the book about, and what I'm interested in, and I think what Whitman was interested in for a lot of his life. Is it really possible to become the wounded person? Is it possible, via listening and paying attention and being thoughtful, to get to a place where you don't just hear what the person is saying, you experience what they are saying as if it is your own? Is it possible for a weird-looking white guy who lived in Washington, D.C. and New York to be the hounded slave in the South, trying desperately to get north, trying to survive, horsemen chasing after him? Let me respectfully say I don't think so. Maybe it was possible for Whitman, but it's not easy for me. I don't think that it's possible for me to know what it was like to be a slave in 1855, trying to become free. I don't have a context that fully allows me to comprehend what it's like to be told that you're someone's property. And then to try to have to escape that and to risk your life to escape that. Like, most of the times I've risked my life have been like, one time I ate a blenderized Happy Meal, and like sort of that level of life risk. It's serious, and I don't want to take anything away from the contributions to the culture that I've made and to the society that I've made, but it doesn't quite fit on the scale with really putting your life in danger. But even though I don't think that we can truly get to that point that Whitman experienced as that mystical revelation, even though I don't think that Abraham Lincoln was ever able to truly understand what it was like to be a slave in the South, he still wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, right? He still did things that mattered, and he still did things for people that were difficult, that mattered, and he made difficult, important decisions, and I think many of those decisions came from that place of listening and believing that we are all us, and that there is no them, and that them is always a false construct, that not only every human being on this planet, but every microorganism of life on this planet is part of an interconnected us. And that there does not have to be a them in order for there to be an us. And this idea of the great unifier, of the listener who becomes the unifier, is something that I take with me everywhere I go, not just in writing, but in my life, because I believe that when we do listen to each other, we lose that sense of them. We lose that sense of the other as foreign and different and less than us. We lose that sense of nerds being, merely lame, merely smart, merely boring. We lose that sense of popular kids being merely cool, merely vapid, merely whatever, because we stop being only one thing. We stop having that single identifier that so many of us have, where we're nerds, or we're, whatever you are, hot, or ugly, or fat, or skinny, or whatever it is that people think of you as, and we start to see people as being whole and complex, and that's when it becomes impossible to deny people the rights and freedoms that we would want for ourselves. That's what I find so moving about Song of Myself, and that's why I included in Paper Towns this book that I wrote about interconnectedness and about learning to see one another as more complicated than maybe we tend to look at other people. So this experience, I'm not going to just say that it's a talk, comes in 3 parts. That was part 1. And part 2 is an interview of me, I'm very excited about. I can't think of a more fascinating interview in the world.